It's that time of year. School is back in session and millions of kids are off to college, which means that tons of students are moving into dorms right now. Hi, I'm Noelle, a designer and artist, and today we're going to look at what makes a good dorm building. So why don't we sit back, drink some warm tea, have a cozy afternoon, and dive into some dorm designs. I've even got a mug for you right here. There you go. Hope you enjoy. If you'll notice, this isn't Architectural Digest, but I thought it'd be fun to do one of their Architect Explains style videos, except for the fact that I can't call myself an architect. The AIA, which is in charge of the architecture profession, really likes to gatekeep who can use the term architect, and so we're gonna go with designer for this video. Now, for many years, most colleges didn't have students as semi-permanent residents. It was more or less expected that you would live somewhere else in the vicinity and commute to campus each day. Obviously, this still is the case with a lot of students in colleges, but as more and more campuses started to add housing as an integral component of their educational experience, they needed some sort of mass-producible design that could house students efficiently. That's where we get perhaps the most common form of dorm design, the corridor-style building. Right here, I have the floor plan for a pretty standard dorm. This is John Jay Hall at Columbia. I actually lived in this building my first year of college, so I am very familiar with this particular structure. The corridor-style dorm is an intuitive design. There's usually one central hallway or corridor through the building with rooms on either side. The hallway itself can really take any shape or form. You can have hallways with all these twists and turns. You can have it form a loop or have like separate wings off of that hallway. It doesn't matter. The corridor concept simply describes having a bunch of rooms off of some shared hallway. In the case of John Jay Hall, all the rooms are singles, which means that every person gets their own room. But single rooms aren't the standard with colleges. That title goes to the ordinary double room. With two people in it, it's pretty self-explanatory. The distribution of singles versus doubles or even other housing types can tell you a lot about a building. How much social activity there is, what kinds of people would choose to live in each, etc. John Jay was actually constructed originally for grad students, and back in the 1920s, university officials thought that this would be the best way to arrange a residence hall. Let's turn to a different building with a standard double layout. This is Carman Hall, an undergraduate dorm at Columbia with a reputation for having lots of parties and social activities. You can tell I've never lived here. I'm too much of an introvert. Anyways, this building is also a corridor-style residence, but this time with bigger rooms for less private living environments. By the way, regardless of doubles or singles, the best way to make a dorm and college experience more social is simply by getting a doorstop and leaving your door open when you're free to talk. This way everyone knows you're willing to chat and you can meet some really nice people this way. What's really interesting in Carman Hall is that architects have split the rooms into pairs of two that each share a common single-use bathroom, as opposed to these standard giant communal bathrooms that are staples of most residence halls. The obvious benefit here is that bathroom situations will still be more private while maintaining lots of social interaction by having multiple people per room. This brings up the whole other issue of gender in colleges. When traditional dorms were implemented, they had very strict separation between genders, and societally our values have changed a lot since the early 1900s to become a lot more integrated and less uptight. The reality of living spaces and architecture around them is that the way in which we utilize these spaces changes over time, and layouts like this need to adapt. John Jay Hall, for instance, was originally constructed only for men, and it used to have giant communal bathrooms, as you can see on the original floor plans here. Toilets on one end and showers on the other. It's this strict reinforcement of gender separation that we're actively trying to reject in the modern era. And I also just think that it's ridiculous to build a 15-story building only for men. Today, John Jay Hall has been rearranged so you have a collection of single-use bathrooms so they can use the same corridor-style floor plan for co-ed use. The way the university decided to renovate the bathrooms is an interesting case study in adapting to a more gender-integrated world. Instead of simply expanding on the communal bathroom model, they decided to go with a much more private model. Now, if you're wondering whether or not this is enough single-use restrooms per floor, I can personally attest to the fact that, yes, I've never had to wait for an empty bathroom living in this layout. And as someone who really hates the way the communal restrooms in any situation are designed, I really appreciate the choices the architects have made here. So it definitely took a long time to get through the corridor style building, but I think the rest should be a lot quicker. we're going to take a look at Ruggles Hall, which is a dorm at Columbia with a suite style layout. As the housing department has helpfully illustrated with these colors, this building has 4 suites per floor, which each have a mix of singles and doubles. By grouping the rooms in clusters like this, it gives a particularly nice accommodation for groups of friends who want to live together for a year. The concept of a suite-style dorm lies simply in the fact that the rooms are grouped together rather than sharing a singular corridor. But there are lots of variations in this model. Some still have giant communal bathrooms, while others, like Ruggles, have single-use restrooms for each suite. Some might offer dedicated common spaces for each suite, and here we can see that that takes the form of a separate kitchen. Last up, we're going to take a look at Woodbridge Hall, which is a dorm at Columbia with an apartment-style layout. In some campuses, they're more common than others, but in general, they're often reserved for juniors and seniors who want a more real-world experience. Because this example is in New York City, the reason this option is a lot more prevalent is because this literally used to be an apartment building, and a pretty expensive one at that, because you've got some really beautiful views of the Hudson River from the upper floors. In a case like this, the university oftentimes acquires adjacent buildings for student housing use, and rather than gut the entire structure and redesign it for suite style or corridor style living, they decided to just keep the existing layout. The apartment style dorm is exactly what it sounds like. You get to live in your own apartment on campus with a full kitchen, private bathroom, a living room, and 1 to 2 bedrooms. Even for 1-bed units, these are often marketed for 2 people, and yes, you can find instances of studio apartments. No bedroom, just 1 single living space allotted for 2 people. So now that we've established the 3 main types of dorm building layouts, I think it's important to ask, why are there so many different variations? What are the benefits of some designs over others, and what's the future of student housing? To answer these, let's look at some examples around the world. The Barnato Hall addition at Witwatersrand University in Johannesburg, South Africa by 2610 South Architects is a really intriguing design, as we can see from the floor plan here. The new addition breaks away from the rectangular courtyard format of the rest of the building and forms a pattern of wings that radiate out. If we take a look at the rooms, we can see that it's a mix between suite-style living and traditional corridor-style dorms. Usually buildings stick to one type of layout, but integrating suites and corridor rooms here allows for a much more dynamic mix of different personality. You have the more social people in this section with a very respectable common space dedicated to each suite, and you have much more introverted, quiet people in the single rooms over here. By integrating different types of housing models into one design, you end up with a much more diverse living environment. The walkways between the wings are also a nice touch to allow for more outdoor exposure, fresh air, and a chance to enjoy this incredible facade design inspired by local materials and decolonization practices. Next up, we're going to Paris with these student residences by NZI Architects. This is a particularly interesting situation because these units were built as part of a government-sponsored student housing program rather than a residence hall built specifically for one university. With the way in which they're oriented, the courtyard space provides a really nice connection to the street, but unfortunately here they fence off most of the section, so it doesn't really function in that way. Since this is designed for a mix of students from different colleges, all of the units are apartment style with a very small kitchen and 1 large living space. Finishes throughout the design are pretty high-end, non-standard dorm fixtures, making this feel almost like a hotel. It's a really great design for students who want to have even more independence than anything on campus, because this truly feels like an apartment building at the end of the day, just one that's a little bit more dorm-sized. Last up, we're going to take a look at the Hiroshima Global Academy by CAN Architects, which takes the concept of suite-style living and courtyard-oriented living to a whole new level. Unlike the other examples, this is a middle/high school with a residential component, and each of the housing blocks is centered on one of these nodes that you can see here on the floor plan. Each node has their own central garden with suites off the green space. All of these are arranged in a sort of fractal pattern, which makes a very playful and engaging space. By heavily orienting all of the dorm rooms off of multiple different common spaces, the architects are really emphasizing the communal nature of suite-style living and elevating it to a whole new level. Instead of just having one common space, there's a network of multiple common spaces. It's almost a given that a design like this will really foster robust community ties and help making living on your own less lonely. So from these examples, we can clearly see that the different types of dorm layouts are designed to cater towards different types of people, different study habits, and different values in living spaces. Some are more quiet and independent, and others are more sociable and communal. This is precisely where I think the future of dorm living is headed. All of these examples from around the world focus on innovating on the established layout frameworks and even creating more variety in the types of living situations that students can choose from. For first-year students, having dorms to emphasize community is a huge bonus to help make new friends. After that, it's worth asking ourselves what we really value in living space. Maybe it's privacy, or maybe it's the ability to live near your friends. Maybe you like the opportunity to try different dorm styles for your entire college career, or maybe you value stability and staying in one place. It's kind of absurd when you think about it, but our current conceptions of student housing environments are all based on the fact that you'll have a different room for each year, which often means moving 4 different times, generating a lot of material waste as well as uncertainty in your living situation. Perhaps it's time to rethink college housing systems to provide a more diverse array of options and programs. Ultimately, there is no one perfect dorm design that we should be repeating everywhere. It's all about what's a perfect environment for you. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed seeing all these different designs, and I'm curious, which dorm would you want to live in if you were given a chance? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear. If you want to support me and the channel, you can join my Patreon or even support me on Etsy. Thanks for watching to the end. Merci pour avoir regardé, et ça c'est tout.